Hi, I'm just checking in after a month of using my Visible Armband. Maybe you're thinking about buying one, or if you already have one, I would love to hear your ideas on how it's going for you. Um, I'm finding it somewhat useful, and there's some ups and downs. So diving right in, the morning check-in I find really useful. The Visible Armband will prompt you every morning to just sit still for about a minute while it checks your heart rate variability. And then it puts that into a calculation with how you've slept the night before, and that's self-reported, and some other information about, what happened yesterday, and it will give you a score, um, and kind of give you an idea how it thinks you're doing that day. And I have found that it does correspond, not all the time, but most of the time, if I'm waking up feeling kind of low, it does give me a low score. So um, I think that information is really useful psychologically to help you calibrate your day. After decades of having chronic illness, one of the things I found, like the worst things that you can do, is to expect yourself to do way more than you can do over the course of a day. That results in a crash and burn cycle where you just go, go, go until you drop, and then the next day you're feeling worse. So, if nothing else, having this device prompt me to just check in with that mental calibration is pretty helpful. I also like the way it tracks trends. This is one of the more advanced features, which I didn't really get into right away. I did make a little YouTube video of the very basic features you'll look at when you first get the app, and that is on my YouTube channel. It's called the Visible App Intro. Within this trending feature, you can go into the data and you compare, say, physical activity with your HRV the next day. You can look by 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, or 2 weeks. And you can compare this data from two different reference points that you choose, which you've been tracking, such as resting heart rate and severity of headaches. I didn't notice anything particularly surprising, but I think many people will, such as pace points and crash. Like maybe you notice the day after you've accumulated a lot of pace points, you recorded a crash, or maybe you realize that that comes 2 days later, 3 days later. That could be really useful. I did ask tech support about what exactly that horizontal line represents because I found that a little confusing. And I'll quote them. They said, the trend line represents a moving average. In essence, it shows if your symptoms are above or below average based on your baseline data or any of the other factors. I also, speaking of which, I love that there's an in-app way to reach support. And they actually respond, with information that's actually helpful. So, where do you get tech support like that anywhere today? Truly. So I think that the manufacturers are truly here to support us and trying to do something that we can use. Has it helped me? I think, yes and no. I think that I probably set my allotment of pace points too high right at the outset, and I think I'm going to go in and calibrate that. Because I notice that sometimes I am exhausted and I've only gone through maybe a third of my pace points. So I think we're all complicated and circumstances change throughout the day and from day to day. And a device which monitors just heart rate is not going to have all the information. So we need to really respect how we feel as well. And even though Visible is, I know it's meant to be something of an antithesis to the typical fitness device, um, I'm always super competitive with myself, and I find myself pushing myself to reach those pace points every day, even if I'm not feeling well. So I think no matter what, we're all up against our own psychology. So if you're going to use Visible, you have to not use it just for itself, but as a tool to check in with yourself and be willing to accept the answer of what your body is telling you in any given moment. You might not love the answer, but that is the information. And you can choose to push through it, or you can choose to simmer down, take some rest, and just take what comes as a result. So here's how I use Visible. First of all, I don't wear it at night. Um, because it doesn't have a pulse oximeter or any of the other, you know, it's not going to detect if I stop breathing or whatever. I don't think it's going to give me particularly useful information at night, and I don't love wearing it. So um, I am just not going to wear it at night. I find the armband annoying pretty much anywhere I wear it, but I was one of those kids that had to like cut the tags out of all their clothes. So I'm super sensitive, and I know some of us are going to be like that and some of us are not. I did have some earlier ideas on how to wear it, including taping it to your body, and I discussed that in another video. It's called Where Do You Wear Your Visible Armband, and it's up on my YouTube channel. So for more ideas, feel free to check that out. But this is kind of where I've landed after a month. I do wish it came with more than one armband so that those of us with like little dainty wrists and ankles could try it a little more easily. The manufacturer does not officially recommend that you wear it on your wrist, and they say that's because your wrists are really bony. I wore it simultaneously with the pulse oximeter, and I found that my heart rate was registered about the same in both devices. I'm hoping that that's accurate. If somebody knows differently, please let me know. But I think for me, I must just have enough blood vessels on my wrist. I also think it might help to wear on this part of your wrist because there might be more skin to get information from there. But here's how I modified my armband to fit on that and not just flop around. I'm sure there's a million ways to do this, but the way I did it was this piece underneath where the wristband doubles back. I just folded it in on itself, and then I took the entire wristband off and then placed this rubber band on it. I'm sure there are fancier things than a rubber band, but that's what I had handy, and just secured it like that. And that plus the tensile strength of like it sitting against my wrist or my ankle seems to hold it in place all day. So I'm gonna keep wearing it. I think the least irritating place for me is on my ankle, and then I just have to hold it in place as I put it on my ankle so that it doesn't come undone. So if anybody has any other ideas on that, let me know. Overall, I feel like I might eventually just not wear it during the day and just use the morning check-in, or I might just wear it once a week and see how things are trending. I got this in particular because I have multiple surgeries coming up and I wanted to have some idea of how my body is doing before and after them because it's hard to remember. So at the very least, I'm tracking a variety of symptoms day to day, and I can look at those charts and graphs and see if after a surgery my HRV is much worse or much better, or my symptoms such as a headache are much better or worse. I just did a blood patch, so headache has been something I've been really tracking lately. And it's so easy, especially because we're in the habit of blocking out symptoms. I think it can be really helpful to just write it down at the end of every day, have a prompt to do that. And then you can look at these charts and graphs over the course of 6 months and say, oh yeah, my headaches were worse after my blood patch, or they were better. So even if you're not particularly into the heart rate variability or any of the other data, you can pick and choose which data you want to focus on. I think it could be a really useful tool, especially for people who are new to the post-viral slash POT slash ME slash CFIDS whatever world. For me, because I have decades of learning how to self-pace, maybe a little less useful in that respect. But I think some people are going to find this really helpful. Please let me know how you are doing with the Visible app. And I hope you are all as well as can be. And I hope that more research keeps coming out and more tools like this are developed to help us.